speaking of warnings, warning. Maybe don't act as suspicious as humanly possible if you're going to be innocent of a crime.
Yeah.
That applies to multiple people in this movie.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so our first review of the night is Juror number 2 from Clint Eastwood. This was a movie that uh, wasn't on a lot of people's radars because Warner Brothers just kind of dumped it on Max, and with really no fanfare whatsoever.
Yeah, I got like a very minimal theatrical release, and then it was just on Max,
Yeah.
which I don't know if what the brain trust over there. Like I usually tend to understand Warner Brothers decision making for things like canceling the Batgirl movie, but sometimes they just are indefensible.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it really did Eastwood dirty because he's, not only a legendary actor, filmmaker, but I mean, he's had a long-standing relationship with Warner Brothers, and for them to just, do him dirty like that is just really, especially at his age, and just
Right? Who knows how many more movies he has in him?
yeah. I mean, he's in his mid-90s, which I'm actually honestly I'm surprised he's still directing movies at that age.
I have to imagine, and this is no slight on him. I have to imagine he's probably leaning a lot on his assistants at this point.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But this one is interesting in a number of ways. So first off, let's see here. First off, the guy who they got to play our main character here, who is Nicholas Holt. Actually, no, yep. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm okay. So I've been doing this for a while. I'm forever thrown off by IMDb's way that they list the actor and character name, and I kind of just wish that they would just mark it clearly.
Yeah.
I always have to look for an actor I recognize to orient myself on it. But
Yeah.
so they have Nicholas Holt there playing Justin Kemp,
Yeah.
and it's kind of startling. I thought I had heard that he was Clint Eastwood's son or something, and I
Oh.
would have totally believed it because they do look very similar.
Yeah, there is a resemblance there. Yeah. He's actually British. He Most people remember him from the X-Men movies. He was Hank McCoy Beast.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's
Yeah.
where I'd seen him before.
And he was also in Mad Max Fury Road. He was the what a lovely day.
So, it's nice that he's getting to be in something a little more serious here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um,
and this is a pretty good cast here. You got J.K. Simmons as one of the jurors,
yeah.
Keith Sutherland as as
Yeah.
excuse me, Kiefer Sutherland as his lawyer buddy,
Yeah.
uh, Zoe
Yeah.
Deutsch as his
His
his wife.
Yeah. You got Tony Collette is the prosecutor. She's been in a lot of things. She was in a horror movie called Hereditary, which I've been meaning to watch, but it's one of those real heavy subject matter movies that it's like I got to be in the
Oh,
right mood for
yeah.
it.
Hey Daniel, guess what? This isn't the first review that we've watched with her in it. Guess what? The previous one we watched with her in it was.
What was it?
She was the grandma in Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken.
Oh, okay.
This is a slightly better movie than that masterpiece.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so I was kind of clued into this one by the Andrew Klavan podcast, where he used this as a comparison point against a lot of kind of frivolous superhero movies and the like.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting to watch something a bit more adult because you can't eat candy all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Every now and then you got to eat a steak.
Yep. And that's a good analogy because there's a lot to sink your teeth into on this movie because
Yeah.
it's really a movie about a moral dilemma and it doesn't hold your hand entirely.
Right. Yeah. And uh, I guess we'll kind of hold off on spoiler talk because it's hard to talk about this movie without getting into spoilers. Um,
Yeah, I think that anything that really happens in the first 15 minutes is fair game because it's the premise of the movie, and then we can kind of get into spoilerific talk afterwards.
yeah. Yeah. So as DB mentioned, Nicholas Holt plays Justin Kemp. He's a writer for a lifestyle magazine. He's got a wife who is about to give birth, and it's a high risk pregnancy.
Hmm.
But unfortunately for Justin, he's been called for jury duty. And having been called for jury duty in the past, I can tell you it sucks. But most of the time when you get called for jury duty, it's something like really, not nothing too spectacular. But not the case here. He's been called for a murder trial, a rather high profile one, where a guy, his name is, what was his name? Uh, um, James Michael Scythe is accused of murdering his girlfriend. And his girlfriend was actually played by Eastwood's daughter.
Okay, maybe that's where I got my wires crossed because I've heard that somebody he was related to is in this movie, and also
Yeah,
wasn't his wife on the jury too?
Eastwood's wife.
Yeah, like wasn't the old woman on the jury someone or related to someone?
Maybe.
I thought I saw an Eastwood name flash by there that I didn't recognize, but that, neither here nor there.
Yeah. Uh, Yeah, and so the way it kind of plays out is that they're arguing that he beat her up and then threw her in a ditch. And so Justin gets called for jury duty because he's the perfect juror because he doesn't know anything about this case. Um, but as he gets on the jury, he hears the opening arguments. He quickly realizes that he knows more about it than he thought.
Yeah. So turns out that the night of the murder, he happened to be at the same bar, even though he didn't realize it.
Yeah,
Um, and he was driving home, and he believed that he hit a deer because hits it or hits something, gets out of the car, sees nothing, gets back in the car, drives off,
yeah,
and he realizes, wait, I hit that thing right around where they found her body.
yeah,
And so now he's in the position of if he reveals what he's doing, his life is over.
yeah. Because uh, well, I guess should we get into the spoiler
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. So well, let's go ahead and firewall spoilers. Non-spoiler thoughts. I would say if you're in the mood for a well-shot, pretty serious movie with a lot of nice acting performances, especially reliant uh, on Nicholas Holt himself to
Yeah,
carry the movie. He does a good job.
yeah,
I would say you could maybe tighten up the pace a little bit because for as tense of a situation as it is, I think you could have done more to drive things forward a bit, but I'm not sure what I would specifically recommend. So it's the most helpful kind of feedback.
yeah. That was my main issue with it was that it was slow in places, and the movie is just under 2 hours, but you, they probably could have cut maybe 20 or 30 minutes out of it.
Yeah, just make something really tight.
Yeah, make it, yeah, like a nice, yeah, like a tight 90 to 100 minutes.
Yep.
Um, but other than that, I mean, it's yeah, it's a I think it's a very solid character drama. And it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't tell you what you should think, or what you should, who you think is right or who you think is wrong, much like Unforgiven, another Clint
Mhm.
Eastwood movie. So yeah, yeah, really, yeah, very good movie.
Yep. Okay. Spoiler time. So
Yes.
if you watch past this point, and you feel that the movie was ruined for you, it's on your own head. I'm sorry. I don't know what. Yeah, not sure what you're thinking. Continuing to watch after this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So Justin, Nicholas Holt's character, he realizes that the murder victim in this case, that she wasn't beaten up and thrown into a ditch by her boyfriend. He actually accidentally hit her, and it was basically a hit and run. Even though at the time it happened, he didn't think he hit a person. He thought he hit a deer because like
Mhm.
you pointed out earlier, he gets out of the car. Of course, it's pitch black, pouring rain, and he looks at his headlights, got a ding on it, and he sees the deer crossing sign, and he's like, "Oh, great, I hit a deer." But he didn't. He hit whatever the can't remember the name of the character. That's
He hit the victim.
He hit the big, yeah. Kendall Carter was her name, and so he's grappling with that, and then he goes to his lawyer friend, who's played by Kiefer Sutherland, which was nice to see him,
Mhm.
uh, and Larry Laster, and of course Larry is not only a lawyer friend, but he's also his AA sponsor, because we find out that Justin is a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah. And also Justin, to kind of prove to, like, he was having a moment of weakness, and he was at the bar the night of the incident,
Yeah,
and he had bought a drink that he kept looking at longingly before he shoved it away and left.
yeah,
But of
and
course, who in the world is going to believe that
yeah,
if,
exactly.
if he
Yeah,
goes to trial?
yeah, and we also find out he had a DUI conviction. And
Right.
so, yeah, so that's what Kiefer Sutherland tells him, is like, hey, nobody's going to believe you that you left that bar sober. And, you're looking at least 30 years to life if you come forward. So now he's Justin's stuck with this moral quandary of, I'm on this juror, I'm a juror on this murder trial. I'm the one who did it. And I know the guy that's on trial is innocent, but I can't do anything about it, because if I say something, I'm going to prison, and my wife is, going to be a single mom, and
If the kid survives, because maybe the stress would cause a miscarriage.
right, yeah, and
Although I guess as pregnant as she was, it would probably be viable still, but still, it's not good.
no, it's not good, yeah. And so he's basically just keeps his head down and goes to the trial, and then where it kind of really gets going is during the deliberations, when all the jurors are in the room, and trying to decide on the verdict. And of course, it kind of has that 12 angry men moment, where every member of the jury thinks that not every member of the jury, but pretty much all of them think that he's guilty. But Justin's like, well, let's talk about this.
Mhm.
Let's go through the deliberations. And of course, as DB pointed out, one of the jurors is J.K. Simmons. His character's name's Harold, and then we find out during the course of the deliberations, he's actually a retired detective.
Yep, retired police,
Yeah.
and like so I'd say like so he's investigating, which of course makes him nervous.
Hmm.
Uh, you have some members of the jury who he can sway, because here's the thing: if he didn't actually kill his girlfriend, then but by the nature of it, there will be holes in the evidence,
Yeah.
and so he's using those holes to try to get a not guilty plea. But there are some people who are just firm on it. And you get a lot of perspectives on what to do here, because you have one guy, and I thought this was very interesting, but also very true to life. One guy on the jury, he seemed to think, well, what? So nobody should suffer, or like there shouldn't be justice.
Yeah.
And it's like a very like primitive concept of justice, where it's like, oh, well, this young lady died, so someone has to suffer the price.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, what if they didn't do it? That thought almost seems to be secondary to him.
Yeah. Which, yeah, you don't necessarily want somebody like that on a jury.
No. You have somebody else who noticed that the accused, who did have an anger problem, that had a covered up tattoo that he was was associated with some gang who, what do you know, had sold who had sold drugs, and or no, excuse me, was it the same gang that his brother had died in, or
probably a rival gang, I think.
okay. As you have one guy's like, yeah, no, he's scum because I know what the type of organization he was in.
Yeah, and he was also the he ran the Boys and Girls Club. So he's
Our juror ran the Boys and Girls Club, and not the accused.
Right, yeah,
pronoun confusion.
Yeah,
yeah, and so he'd seen enough lives destroyed by the gangs.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting when you like, if you have like a consequentialist view of justice, rather than enduring moral principles. A consequentialist view of justice would go, okay, well, our main character is turning his life around. He has a kid on the way. He has a good life. He has a wife who needs him. So, meanwhile, on the other hand, we have a guy who needs anger management, who was at least verbally abusive to his girlfriend, was a bit rough with her, though she was kind of rough with him too. So,
yeah,
alcohol and relationship issues don't mix, especially in public.
Yeah.
And also, on the night in question, she walked off, like she stormed off when he had driven her, and he didn't offer her a ride home because he was angry.
Yeah.
He just followed her for a bit, then let her walk home in the dark, in the pouring rain, which you could argue like that's begging for something to happen to her. Like that's negligent.
Yeah, and on top of that, if I remember right, she was wearing like dark clothing.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, yeah, you're out and it's pitch black, raining, and you're wearing dark clothing, and you're walking on a very narrow bridge. Like, yeah. It's should she have died? No, but it's circumstances.
Right. It's basically opening every door to trouble and asking it to come in.
Yeah.
So if you take a consequentialist view of morality, it's like, okay, well, this guy is probably not doing the world any good. Let's save the guy who is doing the world good and let bygones be bygones. But if you take more of a, justice has to be done. If he didn't actually murder his girlfriend, he should not go to jail for it, no matter the consequences. Let justice be done, and the truth will out. Then, our juror number 2 there should go to prison, or at least go to trial for this.
Yeah.
But what's occurred to me as we're talking about this is that the first stage of jury selection, and they show this in the movie, is that you're supposed to not have any inside knowledge. You're not supposed to bring your outside biases. You're just supposed to go with what you're presented.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's a somewhat impossible standard, because I just realized as we're talking through it, everybody has outside information, not just juror number 2. Like they didn't point out in the trial, and the accused was a member of X or such and such gang.
Yeah.
They didn't tell that other guy, oh yeah, well, if somebody died, there has to be some sort of retribution. So we need to find someone guilty.
Yeah.
They didn't tell J.K. Simmons to go investigating on his own because he didn't think the evidence added up.
Yeah, and the other thing too is they weren't sequestered.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who don't know what that is, usually in like really high profile trials, the members of the jury will be sequestered. And basically, what that means is they're put up in a hotel room somewhere, and they can't watch TV. They can't use the internet. They've really, the only thing they can do is just like read a book.
Right. But these people were just constantly leaving.
Yeah, and which, and they could easily go on the internet and look up this trial, and they could easily look up the accused, find out everything they can about them, all that.
It also occurs to me that we have largely left out Toni Collette's character, the prosecutor, who is kind of reliant on this case as her election campaign. She is not the prosecutor yet, or she's not the DA yet.
Yeah, she's an assistant DA, yeah, and she's running for DA, and and so even though she's trying, she tries her best to kind of keep those two separate. It's like it's kind of hard not to.
Right, because the polling says she gets a 6-point swing if she gets a conviction here.
Yeah. And then her the accused lawyer, who is a public defender, and it sounds like they're old friends from law school. And he's, and of course, most of the time with public defenders, and J.K. Simmons mentions this in the movie, public defenders have like 10 times the workload that prosecutors do, and they don't get paid nearly as much. So most of the time, a public defender will tell a defendant take a plea deal,
and this guy did not.
And this guy didn't. And usually with public, and the lawyer says, most of the time he can tell, well, like the people he's defending, yeah, they're guilty, but he's like 100% convinced that his client's innocent, and of course we know he is.
Yep. And so the way the movie ends is that while the prosecutor is investigating, she eventually pieces together that our juror number 2 is most likely the person who hit her with a car.
Yeah.
And so the movie actually ends on a Lady or the Tiger moment where she just comes to his house and rings his doorbell to confront him, and then it just cuts to credit, so we don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And I think it is just because of that nature of it. It's a movie that wants you to think rather than being told what to think.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reiterate my recommendation for this one if you're in the mood for something more serious and thought-provoking, because even just as we've talked about this, more layers have emerged to me, and this would probably be worth a rewatch, because you don't know everything about the case or about the whole situation at the start, and you kind of go Rashomon a little bit with the night in question, like seeing different perspectives on it. Like, I thought it was kind of funny how the boyfriend, when he was, or the accused, when he was telling his side of the story, kind of left out the explosive bursts of anger.
Yeah.
and then I told her that I wasn't going to take her home.
Yeah.
Left out the blowing up at her.
Yeah. Left out
the
the breaking the beer bottles, and then and then her giving them the finger right in his face. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's streaming on Max now. I don't know if it got a physical release or not. If it did, and it sounds like it's up your alley, I would say this is a piece of art that would be worth supporting. Hey, Warner Brothers, you kind of screwed this one out of a proper release. Come on.
Yeah.
Although I think it was number 1 on Max when we were watching it last week.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, definitely give it a watch. And it's definitely worth the 2 hours. Yeah.